Well, that sucks. Um, it's being recorded. No, I don't. There's only one button here. Um, I am guessing it's one of these down here is now busted. I have no idea. So, yeah, this I'm not putting on Brightspace. Why? Because that's the front page of the exam. Anyways, sorry guys, I will try to stand as far back as I can. There's not much you can do, not much you can see. And even as it is, those guys can't see very much either, yet. Okay. So, I'm here to give you guys the summaries for the exams. Notice plural on that. And one other piece of information. All right. The exam is out of 90. That means there's 90 questions, period. 1 point per question. There are multiple guesses. That means there's only one correct answer per question. Okay? And I'm not a fan of all the above, none of the above. There may be some of those in there, but they're not all in there. That's not all like that. There are questions on 3 separate pages. I mean on 6 pages, 3 through 9. You'll notice there's, well, you won't notice, but when you get the exam, there's 13 pages. There's a series of figures on the last page. So these are referring to figure 1 or figure 2 or figure 3, answer the following questions. Historically, they'd put it in line and then people were flicking back and forth. I thought that was dumb. Since I'm in charge of the exam, I put the figures so you can rip off the back page. You have to give it back to me. But you don't get to keep the back page, but you can rip it off. So as you're answering the questions, you can actually go, oh, this, like that. The exam is 2 hours long. The math we usually use for a multiple choice exam is 1 minute per question. That means that if some of the questions that are easy, you do them in less than a minute, like 30 seconds, 20 seconds a question, depending on how fast you get through it, giving you time for the harder questions. There's 90 questions for a 2-hour exam, which tells me you currently have about 1.25 minutes per question, which is lots of time. It's Scantron. If you don't know what that is, okay. If you've experienced it, you know Scantron. Bring a really good eraser. Scantron is finicky. Bring a pencil. Apparently pens don't work. Make sure you fill in the bubbles properly. That's that. If you really botched your exam sheet, put your hand up in the air. I'll be giving the same instructions, but you know, if you have a problem, I'll bring you a spare Scantron sheet. Okay? It's closed book because of the final exam. By now you should understand the material. There are questions you've seen before, I guarantee it. There's questions you have never seen before because they came from another prof. You'll be sitting in the gym. There's 2 sections of 8215 sitting together. Section 300 and 310. You guys are 310. It's the same exam for both groups. Thus, there's questions coming from more than one source. I've made sure that the material was covered. Technically, as far as I can remember of what's on this exam, you've already got everything you need for it. As of last week. Not 100% sure. I have to double check that. As it says on here, cheating, I take your exam, I rip it up, and I report you upstairs. You let somebody else look at your test on purpose. You're going, the person goes, psst, and you go, you're both going upstairs. It's pretty much how that works. And I'm not the only one. There's going to be 4 of us monitoring you guys. So, you know, maybe I see this guy go, France 1. Huh. There, let me see your answers because I'm too sad to study. Psst, right? Just show the exam. Yeah, I might just go, whatever. Just stop doing that. Some of the other monitors may not, and they'll just take you out. So, just warning you now. Cheating will be taken on very seriously. It's closed book. That also means put away your phones. If you really need to have your phone for whatever reason, because there's an emergency or whatever happening, let me know. We can leave it up front so it rings. I can go, dude, your phone's going off. Or dudette, your phone's going off. Right? Just other than that, there's no reason for you to have your phones. Turn them off. Book bags are going to be left at the front. We don't want them under your desk because if we suddenly keep seeing you going down because your bag keeps falling over, we think you're cheating. It just looks bad. All right. If I make it small enough, I can actually show you the pages. That's the format. And there's the figures. Okay? Okay. So that's the final exam. It is on August 17th. Hold on. It's on August 17th, 9:30 in the morning. If you're more than a half hour late, we may not let you start it. It depends what whoever catches you at the door. Historically, if you're more than half an hour late, you probably won't have time to finish the exam. Therefore, what's the point? Don't be late. We'll give you the half hour. What's the fastest I've seen this exam or someone very similar to this written? I've seen it done in 40 minutes. That's the fastest I've ever seen. Yes. You must be in your seat at 9:30 a.m. We will be letting you guys in at about 9:15. The exams are duplicated. They're sitting in a box in my office. They're done. They're ready. Yes. Speak up. No, it's 90 points. So if you take 90 divided by 90, then you have 100%. It's 90 points. If you get 90 out of 90, then you get 100. Okay? What? Sometimes I have to be sarcastic. That's like grade 4. It's, okay, it covers, I'll be doing a review the week before, so you guys have it. But it mostly covers theory. The written exam, which is Scantron, is theory. And some of it is, you'll be provided, for example, here's a query I've given you. What is this doing? It's not write a query to make this happen. I give you a query and ask you, do you actually understand what it's doing? The written exam is to test your understanding of the material.
Is there any query that doesn't, like, it's rated wrong, like it's not going to do anything?
No, they're all good. I don't have that either. I don't like those kinds of questions. And since I'm in charge of the exam, I was told you get to decide what the exam's like with input from the other teacher. No, there's no questions like that. All the queries are valid.
So we don't have to write out.
No. I used to do that and I couldn't read people's handwriting, so I had to guess whether or not you got the answer right. I'm like, this is written in Farsi. What the frig is this? I'm like, I can't tell. Is it right? I can't tell. Yes? The week before. There's no lectures that week. To my understanding, I go to double check the academic calendar, but to my understanding, the last day of class is the week before. I think they timed it so that there's a whole week off, which is kind of weird. Yeah, that'll be the review, which leads me to item number 2, the practical exam. In the past, this course only had a big, heavy-duty, thick, almost 3-hour exam. It was like 200 questions. But the problem was that it tested practical skills on a piece of paper. And we had to guess whether or not you actually understood what you were writing. And whether or not, based on what we gave you, whether or not that'd be the right answer. And we had to deal with people's handwriting. We had to deal with all kinds of things. And some people can't spell. So no matter what, all their queries were wrong because they just couldn't spell. Even though they understood the concepts, they got points wrong because it was wrong. So about 3 years ago, when I was still fully in charge of 8215, it was my course and only my course, I split the exam in 2. That means you had a written exam that wasn't as big. You had a practical exam, which wasn't that big. So during the lab period, the week before the written exam, so the last week of classes, The lab periods is when you're going to take your practical exam. The format is as follows. 1 week prior to that, so in about a week from now, I'll be giving you guys a database you've never seen. A diagram that matches the database. You can set it up during lab, set it up at home. The thing is you have to have that database imported into Postgres so you can do it. I'm giving it to you ahead of time so that you can play with it. Examine the data, look at how the relationships work. Practice doing joins amongst all the different tables. Okay, the week of the exam, you will come to your assigned lab period. Because I can't have people floating from one group to another because there's no way I can keep track the appropriate amount of time. Otherwise, I have to open the test for everyone every time. So you come during your scheduled lab period. The test will be opened just for those students. It is 10 questions, and only 10 questions. The format is I give you a question. I say how many of, and I'll go with my old practical exam because I'm not lying. How many of this product was sold during the month of September? What are you going to give me? A number. Not the query. I don't care how you get the answer, as long as you don't cheat. I had a guy who took the entire database, exported it into Excel. And he did the entire exam using Excel. I said, dude, that is not the point, but you got it right. No partial points. So each question is 1 point. And just like in the real world, if you give your boss the wrong answer, you gave your boss the wrong answer. These are all real world questions. And actually, I can even give you guys a bit of a hint of what kind of database it is. There used to be a website called OpenTracker. OpenTracker used to be an open source flight tracking service where you could actually track flights around the world. They actually offered their data for free download. So as of 4 years ago, it contains every route for every airline, every aircraft, every airport in the world. It is not a huge database, surprisingly. However, it is real data. So these are real airplanes that flew through real routes from real destinations and starting points. It's all real data. It even includes airports I didn't even know existed. Even the tiny little ones like Pembroke Airport is in it. You know, the airport in my hometown is in it. The airport at Alert is in it. If you don't know where that is, go look it up on a map. It's as far north in Canada as you can go. So it's real data. It's not make-believe data. It's all real. That's the kind of stuff I prefer you guys to work with. It's real data. So that's what you're going to be working with. Just give me a second to finish my spiel. Just hold that thought. The way it works is when you go start exam, and of course I've never done this with Brightspace, so hope to God it works, right? But I did do a test. I was able to run it as a test, and it allowed me to start it as a test. It is a randomly generated exam. So 10 questions total. The way it's divided is there's 3 easy questions. You'll notice the air quotes. They're fairly straightforward questions. They're like what you'd see in Lab 7. No, Lab 8, sorry. So sort of like what you see in Lab 8. You've got some medium type questions. 6 of those. Those are what you find in the first half of Lab 9. Then you got a hard question. 1 hard question. Which is what you find in the latter half of Lab 9. So if you can do Lab 8 and Lab 9, you should be okay. I'm not going to say you're going to be fine, but you should be okay. Essentially, you should be able to understand how to write a query, how to do joins, and how to use aggregates. Maybe understand the round function. That's the basics of what you need. I will be giving you guys that stuff in time. And it's, like I said, randomly generated. So the 3 easy question comes out of a pool of like 30 questions. The medium questions come out of a pool of like 35 questions. And every term I keep adding to it. So, and then the hard one comes out of a slightly smaller pool because I just ran out of ideas. So that means that there could be 6 of you sitting side by side and none of you will have the same exam. And even if they pull the same questions, they might not be in the same spot because they're in random order also. Thus, it's a completely randomized exam. Don't do like a group of students I had last summer where they sat there and they actually were texting each other the answers across the classroom. It was great. I didn't care because I knew they didn't have the same test. Right? So they were I could see them texting because I can tell the difference how people type when they're texting as opposed to, you know, hey dude, what's the answer versus select. Right? I mean, you can't tell when I'm typing the difference because I'm so used to typing it, but you guys are still not that comfortable typing it. Some of you might be. There might be a few in here that are okay with it. But I can tell the difference, right? I'm watching these three guys right, and they're like going typing. Right? They think they're getting away with it. And then the exam finished, and the three guys started giggling. And they all got up and walked out together. I'm like, okay, you guys are typing fast, you're giggling together, and you all leave together, right? I looked up, all three got 0. It was glorious. I didn't even need to punish them. They failed the course. So the way it works is the practical exam is worth half of your final exam grade. So when you look at your course outline, it says final exam is worth 40% of your grade. What it does is the practical is worth half, the theory is worth half. So it's where each of these is worth 20% of your grade, let's say. So what this does, it's fairer for people that are the ones that can't memorize, but they can do the practical, they get a chance of getting an okay grade on the exam. The ones that can memorize but suck at the practical have an okay chance of getting an okay grade on the exam. If you're actually good at studying and memorizing and you got the material down, you'll get a great grade on your exam. If you suck at it all, well, you know. You know, if anybody in here feels under that, you know who you are. You know, time to study. But that's that. Historically, students have told me the practical exam is not that hard. I am trying to extract my old practical, because historically I've given my old version of the practical before it was the airplane database. I gave it to people because that one was actually harder. It was very not balanced. When I first tried doing one of these, it wasn't very balanced. And the students like, this is really hard. I go, good thing the other one's not as hard as this. But if you can do lab 8, 9, you're fine. Theoretically. All right, so you had a question.
Basically answered, but it sounds like it's going to be all select statements.
It's all selects. There's no inserts, no updates, no deletes, no truncates. Essentially, I am testing your ability to understand a question and answer it. It's basically, the statements are pretty clear. I've had students complain about some of the questions and I corrected them immediately. So this is its 4th iteration being used. And over the years, it's grown by 5 to 10 questions per pool. 5 questions per pool, roughly per term. So even if you theoretically took this test last fall, which I don't recognize any faces in here, there'd still be questions you've never seen. So that's that. So it's actually a fairly straightforward exam. Yes? You have to have a working laptop. Yeah. Optional. It's not going to be on the practical. And no, it's not going to be on the... There are going to be some topics about not Lab 10, but the material that would be for Lab 10. I think there's like 2 or 3 questions on the exam. They'll be covered next week. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's a little hazy at the moment. Okay. Now, the last announcement, well, 2 more announcements. Assignment 2 is due next week, obviously, because I screwed up the due date and I refused to retract my screw up. So you have until midnight, whatever, next Tuesday to submit. By the same token, normally you'd see it right now, but because I'm abridging the lecture, you're not seeing it. Test number deuce. Test 2 is being released today. You have 1 week. Take home. Open book. The usual. I'm 90% sure I covered everything that's supposed to be in there. If I didn't, I will remove those questions. I'm just going to be completely honest. Some of the final exam questions do come from the tests. Well, the tests, not the hybrids. From the tests. There are some questions that may leak, that have leaked from my tests onto the exam. And some of the other teachers' test questions have leaked onto the exam. And then there's a bunch of questions that are not from either tests on the exam. They're historical questions. We've had them for years. Okay, to pass the course, as she's asking, there's 2 requirements, right? You have to maintain at least 50% in the course, and you have to pass the final exam. Now, put in quotes, because it's a 2-piece final exam, what I do is I take the grade from the 2 together, add them up. If you manage to get 50% with the 2 tests put together, you're good, right? So that's what I'm saying. If you suck at the practical, but there's some people that have a hard time with the practical. It's life. But you're really good at the theory, and you do really well in the written theory exam, but you do on the practical, you'll still get more than 50%. And flip, vice versa. I theoretically can in about a week. Because Lab 9's not due till the end of the week. Yes, I can theoretically put them up. Try again? No. There's nothing like that. Those tutorials are designed, I made you guys do extra hard tutorials so that you'd be struggling a little bit. No, there's some of those questions actually, I find them challenging. I'll be honest, I find some of those questions challenging myself. Like I have to sit there and think about it before I do it. The point of those tutorials were to push you guys a little bit, to expand your understanding of the language. If you're not pushed hard, then sometimes you don't learn. If I give you, these are the commands, this is how you do this, and people go, oh, okay, great, I understand, I know how to do a quadratic formula, but you don't know how to actually apply it? Because you know how to do it doesn't mean you know how to apply it. So this forced you to learn how to do it and apply it in a really strange data set, because that data set was terrible in that tutorial. But the explanations are really good. So once you read through the explanation how to do it, it makes sense. Then that's why